Start recording. So again, guys, welcome. This is our Luxury and Legacy series. This is the first of the Luxury and Legacy series where we are talking everything real estate. So talking about buying, selling, and investing in real estate. Our special guest will be right back. So it's hosted by myself, Michelle Morton. I'm a local realtor in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and also hosted by Nikki Cates Miller, who is a lender, mortgage extraordinaire, and we're baby investors in our own right. But Miss Vannessa Heatley, who will be joining us in a second, is a very experienced real estate investor. Cool. Hi, Dominique. We see you. Awesome. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. And before we wait for Ms. Vannessa to hop back on and join us, let's talk about just what's happening in the market right now. So we have some realtors here with us. We have some lenders here with us. We have some buyers and sellers and investors here with us. So let's just talk about in our local market here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I know for me, the market is still very, very hot. What do you think, Nikki?
What I'm saying is that I have quite a few pre-approvals out there, but that the deals just haven't been getting won. You have to be very competitive right now in this market. It's very much still a seller's market. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So, right now, people are placing contracts and they're not wanting to get too competitive with it. You're going to have to be competitive in order to win these offers and get these ratified contracts. And I've just been noticing that pre-approvals have been out there a little bit longer than normally would be.
Absolutely. And I know from this perspective, what's been happening on this end, and Dominique can probably attest to it, anyone that's out there handling real estate transactions right now, is that there are a lot of buyers in the market, right? There's a lot of buyers. Most of the stuff that we compete on, comes in at multiple offers, right? So last week I won a offer. We won the contract and it was out of 11 offers.
See, competitive.
Yes. And we ended up winning it at $40,000 over the list price.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there was another one that we did not win. We came in second, but second is losing in real estate. But it was out of 7 offers and we still offered $25,000 over list price. And still, we were not the number one realtor. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how has the mortgage industry been affected with what's happening? I know there were some big time changes that happened at the beginning of COVID. What about now?
Well, at this point, you would think that since it's been so long, we're looking at almost 6 months here. I realized that this morning and I just could not believe it. Like my husband's been out of work almost 6 months. It was a rude awakening, but we have been dealing with this since early March-ish. And probably a few weeks in, we ended up taking a dip in what we could offer borrowers. Mm-hmm. We're to the point now where it's eased up just a little. You still have some companies that can still function with a 580 credit score. We are not one of those companies still, but we can offer a 620 credit score. So while you can get an FHA, I will say this though, this caveat, if you're going for a government loan that normally would allow you a 580 credit score, you're going to have some assets in the bank and you're going to have to probably buy your rate down because the rates are still going to be super, super high for scores under a 600 or under a 620. Even at a 620 right now, I'm seeing still in the 4% range for pricing for your interest rate, even higher than that if you're not buying the rate down. So right now you're really looking at making sure that if you're not ready to buy it the second, get your credit scores up, get that secured credit card if it's going to help, or pay down your credit cards. Most of the time that's what it is. It's really just paying down your credit cards, your revolving credit lines to get your scores up, because that's going to give you the biggest difference right now in successfully getting a loan.
Perfect. And when you say things like buying down a rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those of us in the industry understand what that means, but what do you mean for the everyday buyer or seller when you say buying down a rate?
So a discount point would be 1% of your loan amount. Okay. So if you are at a 635 credit score and we can offer you a 4.125 interest rate with that. However, if you can pay 1 point, which would be 1% of your loan amount. So let's just say, for instance, it's a FHA loan. I'll put my calculator up. Not good with math, y'all. I need a calculator. So let's say the purchase price is $250, right? And then you're going to put 3.5% down because it's an FHA loan standard. $87.50. All right, so $241,250 would be your loan amount. Okay, so 1% of that would be your discount point. If you pay that 1 point, whatever rate that we're able to offer you that would be discounted from that would be what the rate would be. So let's say we could go to a 3.5 or something like that based off the pricing. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, if you can buy down your rate, that means you just have extra cash outside of your closing costs and your down payment that you will be able to put towards getting a lower interest rate, which means a lower payment.
Awesome. Sorry, I was just talking to our special guest. So hi, everyone. We've had a lot of people join us. In the meantime, we're waiting on our special guest. She was here. She had some technical difficulties, our investor extraordinaire. In the meantime, we're just talking about what's happening in the market right now as far as buying, selling, and investing in real estate. Here in the local DMV area, the market is still hot. I know a lot of my realtors in other areas that are on right now are saying the same thing. Nikki was just telling us a little bit about the finance side to real estate. So how about everyone that's here take a moment to introduce yourselves, if you choose to, not necessary, but tell us who you are, if you are looking to purchase or sell or invest in real estate, or if you're in the industry. Anyone want to introduce themselves? Dominique?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dominique Dull. I am a realtor, just currently licensed in Maryland for now. Hopefully DC soon. Work with Bennett Realty Solutions, and I like to specialize in first-time home buyers, but also new construction, and I love home decor. So I'm hoping to learn a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, and our special guest, Miss Vannessa Heatley, is back. Yay! I mean, we understand these technology right now is running amok because I think so many people are using it, right? And so without further ado, I want to give a quick introduction, to Vannessa Heatley. Not only is she a real estate investor who's been in this game for a long time, not to age any of us, but but a long time. And she's going to talk to us today about how, one, it's possible for all of us to invest in real estate, right? And then two, just share with us her journey as someone who has had a successful career and invested in real estate, been through the highs and lows of the market, and also why it's important to invest in real estate, right?
Yes. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. The other ladies don't know, Mr. Dwight knows, and my brother who's on knows how passionate I feel about this subject. I remember when Michelle was a young lady in her early 20s. I've been in the game a long time. And she and I had this passing conversation about building wealth and just being comfortable in life. I don't think she ever wanted to be rich, but I do believe, looking back, she wanted to be comfortable. And I was fortunate that as a young person, as a little person, I don't ever remember living in an apartment. My father's military, so my mom and dad worked very hard to ensure that we had the best that they could provide. And so we always lived in a house. And so I was never, that the idea of living in an apartment was something that just was foreign to me. So that was a great benefit. And as I started to grow into a woman, I have a very independent spirit. And I believe that, have always felt like if it can be done, and if someone else is doing it, then why can't I do it? That's just something that's always been true to a principle that I've lived by. And so I can remember at an early age talking to this lady about what I talked to Michelle about having a comfortable life. Never been married, no children. So I knew that basically I had to fend for myself. And so, you get into a government job, which I've worked for many, many years, and you start learning about retirement. They talk to you about retirement putting money aside and having some disposable income when you get to a point where you want to retire. And so I gratefully that there were people that would come into the job and talk about passive income, the buzzwords, Miss Nikki, all the buzzwords, passive income. And so that was just something really interesting. And so as I got old, as I started maturing into my work environment and speaking to my parents, I learned this thing about real estate. And my very first purchase was through my parents, honestly, it was through my parents. And it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhouse. And they basically told my sister and I, if you take over the payments, it's yours. I mean, what deal? You can't get a better deal than that, right? if you don't know it, ladies, you cannot get a better deal than that. And so I agreed to it. My crazy sister got married, and I told her and her husband, it was either me or her husband, stupid, but she chose her husband. I kept the unit, right? And so I learned this thing about renting, that you can be a passive homeowner. You can get a tenant. So I literally put a little ad in a local newspaper, and I advertised a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I looked at some other advertisement as to how to advertise it in the paper, the proper language. People started calling. And so my first tenant was a boyfriend and girlfriend, and they rented the apartment. So I was a distant homeowner with tenants. Then I learned this thing about having depreciation, appreciation, how to leverage I learned this thing about equity. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, not only can it be done, but I can do it. So I learned early that, first of all, it's very—
How old were you, Auntie? How old were you at that point?
I was about 20, because I just turned 20. So I was a little over 20, about between 21 and 22. And so I'm starting to learn these terms, and I'm starting to educate myself by buying books and just listening to people who own home. My parents were my first mentors. And then I started learning about how important it is to determine the why. Really critical, ladies and gentlemen. You need to, there's one thing to be in real estate for the sake of being in real estate. The reason I was in it was to build wealth, which is Michelle and Nikki is all about. This is about a legacy, and a legacy only starts, you can only have a legacy if you start. You cannot continue to talk about something if you don't actually start. And so I started building my legacy by getting educated. And so I talked to people who were in the game, and then I started learning about this thing about being an investor. Then I started learning this thing about compound interest. And then I started learning this thing about depreciation, tax write-offs. I was hooked. Oh my God. The passion in me that I believe that God placed in me just started percolating to the top. So long story short, I started off that 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I moved, put some tenants there. I moved into another little local city, higher price point. Again, it's just me. Moved into another townhouse, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So I'm increasing every time I move. I rented that out. Moved into another Los Angeles, moved into an apartment. So now I've got 2 tenants. I'm not even 25 years old yet, and I have tenants. And what really made it so enjoyable is tax time. Tax times, ladies. And don't get me wrong, I was making good money. Even as a young person, I was making good money. But I was getting a lot of my investments back because they had this thing called depreciation. So I thought, I'm just going to let my money ride. And so years passed. I got these 2 units. So years passed. I'm living in an apartment. Years passed. And then the market took a dive. So I was kind of worried. And I can remember talking to my father, as a matter of fact, and saying, Dad, I need to sell his things. No. Are you an investor? Or are you, the term flipping wasn't around when I was in my 20s. So we hadn't come up with that term flipping. But why? Basically, he's asking me, why are you in this? Why are you doing this? And again, it's about building wealth for my family. Not my husband or my children, because I didn't have one, but for my nieces and my nephews, my mother, my brothers, and my sisters. And so I started that just kind of resonated with me. It's like, why? And so as I start to answer the question, he explained to me that as an investor, it's about longevity. It's about deferring the gratification, which unfortunately that's something that young people have either not been introduced to or don't understand the value in that. I then went on to college, and this whole time I'm in school, and one of my English professors introduced me to this term called, God, I wrote it down. I'm sorry, it just lost me. It's a term that I absolutely love. I'll come back to it. Oh God, I can't believe I can't remember it. I meant to text it to Michelle because I knew I would forget. Anyway, it's about the cost that you're paying and not doing what it is you're supposed to be doing. It's an alternative cost that you're paying. It's about placing value on whatever it is that you're doing. And you get to determine the higher value. Oh my God. Anyway, so this term, it's a business term. And basically what it's about is determining the cost that you're paying and not doing what it is you're intended to do, what you expect to do, what you're meant to do. Opportunity cost. I learned that term, opportunity cost, and it applies. It's a business term, but it applies, ladies and gentlemen. It applies. Because if you want to be an investor, and I get the sense that you do because you've taken this time, whatever time slot you're in, you've taken this time to call into it, to be a part of this conversation. So clearly you're interested. And because you're interested, you need to take advantage of this time and learn that you're paying a cost, even being on this call, because you could be doing something else. But if you're in it to build a legacy, first of all, you got to get started. You got to stop talking about it. You got to get started. And getting started simply means getting educated. 90% of the millionaires in the last 2 centuries, that's 200 years, have made their wealth through real estate. They've started with 1 unit, a condo, they started with a townhouse, they started with a duplex, they started with a triplex, they started in a very small way. And they've allowed it to build, they've leveraged what it is they've earned quietly, not making a big deal of it, not broadcasting it, not advertising it, not speaking about it to other people who may not be where you are. So they've quietly built that equity in those units, and then they sell as an investor to purchase something else as an investor. The key again is, ladies and gentlemen, it's about longevity. Now, if you're a flipper, that's a different conversation. I'm all for that too. But understand flipping, it's a big difference between flipping, instant gratification, and deferred gratification. And you have to always ask yourself the question, why? If you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're trying to establish a foundation for growth for your children, even for yourself, if you think about retiring in 10 years or so on, this is a great way to build passive income. I went from owning a 2-bedroom, 1-bath little townhouse in not the best part of town, not the worst part of town, kind of right in the middle, not the ugliest unit, not the prettiest unit, right in the middle. But I allowed it to build equity to the point where when I sold that 1 2-bedroom apartment, I had tripled. I had paid off the unit, paid off the cost, the purchase price. And because I held on to it, now remember, I'm working. I'm like any of you. I'm at work doing, drawing in my income, getting my taxes filed every year. And then honestly, I had gotten to the point where I'd almost forgotten about it. And then when the market started uptick, then I started realizing what equity was all about. And that had been about 10 years. Oh my God, I had tripled. By the time it was time for me to sell, it had tripled in value. And so if you're talking, depending on the price point, Nikki can talk to you about that. But depending on the price point, you may not be in a market where you can enjoy, a 300% increase on your equity. You may only get, 50%, 20%, 10%. The important thing is to get started. Get started. Don't look what other people are doing. Don't have any expectation that you're going to earn 10%. You're going to earn 5%. Don't think about that. Think about how long, first of all, the why. And then when you can answer the why, then determine how long, how far that why is going to get you. Investing.
Auntie.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you say that
Sorry.
from when you started, it's okay, no, we love your story. We just want to ask get some questions in there in between, right? So would you say that your why changed from when you started to the middle of your journey to where you are now?
To be honest, yes, because initially, to be totally honest, initially it was about bragging rights because my peers were not doing it. My peers were not doing it. They were buying cars. So this is an excellent point. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to walk away with this. I can remember when I was working in the field and I used to work out and go to people's houses. I worked for a utility company. And it was a part of Los Angeles where it was a large community of people that looked like us. I can't see everybody, it was Black folks. And I would get the bill and I would look at the bill and it would have two names on the bill. And the person who signed up for the water was usually the owner. And so the person who was paying for electricity had a name similar to our name, Johnson, Washington, Jackson. But then I would look at the name on the water, who was the owner, and it wasn't a Washington, it wasn't a Jackson, it wasn't a Williams. It was a name different, which indicated the owner did not look like us. That really bothered me. And so what I realized is that renting is not owning. When you rent an apartment, you don't own it. You're paying someone else's equity. You're paying for someone else's retirement. You are paying for someone else's passive income. So the important thing is to get in. Get in. And if there's any Christians on the call, Proverbs will tell you, Proverbs 22:7 will tell you, and I'm paraphrasing, that we are meant to be lenders. We are not meant to borrow. We are meant to be the ones who lend. Borrowing is something that keeps you in bondage. And we all know what that means to our community. It's an expression of slavery. So first of all, you're not meant to be a slave, no matter what anyone tells you. You're not meant to be in bondage, no matter what anyone tells you. But you have to be willing to go without. You have to be willing to push it off. You have to be willing to make a choice for you. Make an investment. You got to be willing to make an investment in your future. Not expect anyone else to do it. Don't expect mom and daddy, husband, wife, sister, brother. No, you have to be willing to make an investment. And the biggest investment, the biggest investment with the biggest value, the biggest payout is an investment that you make in yourself. Investing in real estate was something I could do. When I started thinking about it, I got the bug. I thought, okay, I can't do this. I mean, honestly, I was less than 25 years old. So Michelle, to answer your question, I know I went around the corner, but so initially it was about bragging because my peers weren't doing it. They were buying cars. They were living in Beverly Hills. They were living in parts of Los Angeles they could not afford, right? I walk up to a house and there's 3 Mercedes in the driveway and the person paying the rent on this house, although there's a big Mercedes in the driveway, was not the owner of the house. They were paying rent. So it meant they didn't own the car because they were leasing the car. They didn't own the house because they were paying rent. So imagine if you're paying rent on a 2-bedroom house and the rent is $1,600 a month, and you got an $800 lease bill on your car, you know how much money you're paying over a year's time? That's money that you are choosing not to invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. So don't worry, don't try to jump out and say, I want a 3-bedroom, I want a 4-bedroom. No, start where you are with what you can afford. If it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo, you're in the game. You're in the game. You're no longer borrowing, you are lending, which is what you're meant to do. Start small wherever you are. And don't look at what other people are doing. It doesn't matter. I started out because I wanted to be, Big Bag Hank on the block. But I got smart. I matured. And maturity is about longevity. Maturity is about investing. And we got to get in the game, y'all. They talk about in 1968 when it was legal. Listen to this. 1968 is when it was legal for the white establishment to not offer lending to the Black community. And I'm sure the Hispanic community, it was all about the white community. 1968, it was legal. It was legal for them to deny us any kind of funding, any kind of lending. So you would think in 1968, it makes sense for Black people to not be, or anyone other than white not to be a homeowner. We are in 2020. Do you understand that? Do you know now the gap is greater now between home ownership in the Black community than it was in when it was legal. When it was legal to deny us lending, the gap is bigger now than it was in 1968. Come on, you guys, we gotta get in the game. Start small, start where you are. Don't do like, mature quicker than I did, because I did. 25, I would say, after I got to about 26 to about 35, by the time I was 35, I had the unit I lived in, which was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-car garage. Los Angeles, I thought I had arrived. I tell you, just real quick, when I got the keys to that place, I didn't need anyone to co-sign with me on the strength of my employment. I'll tell you, I worked like a dog, but it was mine. When I got the keys and I walked to the door and I put the keys in, and when I realized there was no one else in there and that all the furniture was gone, carpet had been, you know how, Nikki, they vacuum the carpet, you got the vacuum marks in the carpet. And gentlemen, I'm sorry, this is gonna sound a little much, but I derobed. And I rolled around on the carpet.
Your brother's here, don't forget.
Yes, I did. That was symbolic for me. That was symbolic because the first unit that I got, I needed my parents to co-sign. I needed my parents on the strength of their worthiness, of their credit worthiness. And we'll talk about that. Again, that's something else we're gonna talk about. I needed their cosign. I needed them to basically speak for me. But on the second one, I did it all by myself. Yeah. So when I got in that door and I closed that door, I thought, wow, that's a feeling I'll never forget. My niece, Lene, I hope she's on the call. She's experiencing that now. So by the time I was 30, from that, I really got the bug. I'm thinking, I can do this. See, the first one, Mom and Dad had to help me. The second one, I did on my own. So I'm thinking, I can do it. Yeah, you got to work hard. And I worked every hour I could. I delayed. I drove a car that I had for 10 years. I was never a big partier. I certainly loved to travel. And I did things I enjoyed, but not on a big scale. Because it was all about deferring that gratification because I had a mission. I had a vision in mind. And so by the time I got 35, I had a unit that I lived in, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I had the unit in was a little town called Chino, the original unit that I had. And then I bought two duplexes, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths each. 2 of them. So now I'm 35 years old. The unit I live in, the unit I have in Southern California, and then now I was in a position because of that first unit. Because of that first unit, I was able to leverage that. Get with this, you guys. I was able to leverage my equity, my profit, because I pulled money out. Nikki can talk to you about that. I pulled the equity out of that. I was able to go to Northern California and buy 2 separate duplexes. Each unit was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a garage, front yard, backyard. 35 years old, just me. I'm college educated, but I promise you, I was never an A student. I wasn't a B student. I wasn't a C student. I wasn't a F student. I was a student. But it was never about being top of my class or the bottom of my class. The goal was to do my absolute best because that was an indicator of how well I was going to do in the real estate market. Because for me, it was about getting in and getting educated. And I was able to turn that education into becoming a savvy investor. That's an investor term, but because you become more mature. You're able to drill down to the why. Delta Six Sigma, if you all don't know that, it's about asking why 5 times. It helps you to drill down to the why. So as you mature, you're able to, like Michelle says, you're able to answer the question differently. It becomes more sophisticated. You're answering the question why. Initially, it was about bragging, but by the time I got to 35, it's about making that money. So I had done it. So ladies, let me leave you with this. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. If you're not doing it, first of all, shame on you. Secondly, if you're not doing it, why not? Because it can be done. I looked around when I was 22, 23, looking for the next one. And I looked around in my peers, some of them, most of them, 90% of them weren't doing anything other than going to work and, driving their big cars. But I had one or two, honestly, I had one or two friends who were willing to at least talk about it. And so we started educating ourselves together, but they kind of peeled off eventually. But when I realized that there were other people doing it who looked like me, African-American, they were about my height. I'm short, I'm 5'2". I saw some short people doing it. I saw some tall people doing it. I saw some brown people. I saw some white people. I saw some men. I saw some women.
Auntie, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So this is what I want to do. I thank you so much. Everyone's loving your story. They're cracking up at you derobing. Not your brother. He didn't derobe.
Don't tell Mama.
At least cracked up. Let's see. Wow, that's crazy. Great information, very inspiring. So I think everyone is really moved and inspired by your story, right? So what I want to do is I want to shoot off some tactical questions at you. Just shoot off some questions, right? And then for each, we're going to play a game. So for each question, you have like 60 seconds to answer.
Okay.
Okay. So because what we want to do is try to get some of this tactical information that people may want to know from you, right? So we're going to get all in your business, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you, with this very first one, you were gifted that from your parents, my grandparents, right? So what advice would you give someone who doesn't have that opportunity? How would they get in the game?
Excellent question. Are you employed? If you're employed, it simply means deciding how much you can put aside once you've paid if you're renting, once you've paid your rent, once you've paid your reoccurring costs, that's your rent, your food, your car, whatever's left over, you have to be willing to put a large chunk of that to the side. You put that in an account that's drawing interest, even if it's a small amount of interest. You put that money to the side and you allow it to grow, because what you're doing is you are deferring. You're deferring. You're just putting it off. You're not saying, I can't do it. Don't do that. Don't say that to yourself. I can't wait 5 years. Yes, you can. Yes, you can wait, because it's about building that nest egg. Because the problem is, what keeps a lot of us out is credit. And so don't get twisted. Don't, let me slow down because I get a little anxious about this. Don't buy into this whole thing that you have to have it now. You do not have to have it now. You that commercial with Nike, just do it. No, just don't do it. Wait. Continue to build your nest egg a little bit at a time. It may take you a year. It may take you 2 years. But I promise you, when it's time for you to go in and sign those papers, you will have the income. Not only the income, you'll have the down payment, which keeps a lot of us out. You'll have the down payment to go in and get that 1 bedroom, 1 bath, which is going to get you started.
Awesome. And you know what, guys, for those of us who are, because we have a lot of different people here, right? Miss Rochelle says, yes, credit. We are all working on it and learned a whole lot along our journey, right? Because we have some buyers here some first-time home buyers who it took 1 to 2 years to buy that first property, right? And I think what I hear you saying is we need to have that same approach when it comes to investing, right? Yeah. So the same way, like Dominique, we educate our clients and say, we're going to work with you for 1 to 2 years, but we make sure that they know you have to get started now. It's that same process, right? Yes. So what I always do with my clients too, is I let them know, like, my goal working with you is not just to be your agent for one transaction, right? My goal is to, one, be the agent that you send to your mother, your cousin, your brother, your sister, all those guys, right? But also to help you build your own legacy. So this is our first transaction. We're going to praise God because you are now a home buyer, but now let's start working on using real estate to build your legacy.
Absolutely. 90% of the millionaires in this country have made their money starting with real estate. Think about it, you guys. The same house on the same corner for 100 years. You know how many loans have been on that one piece of property? Many. There's been many loans on that one house. Why? Because there's value in that house. So if it takes you 2 years, take that 2 years to get educated, to get mature, to save your money, to bring in some more income. And Nikki and Michelle can talk about that. Get your little part-time job to, generate some more income, another revenue stream. And don't worry about it taking you 2 years. I promise you that 2 years, if you're on point, that 2 years is going to go like that.
Well, I have another one for you. I have another one. So let's tell us a little bit about what your money looked like, right? Not fit like dollars and cents, but okay. And then when you first started, you had a new unit, you found a tenant. What did your life look like? And then once you up leveled to the second unit, what did your life look like? And then once you had multiple units, what did life look like?
My goal initially from the very onset was to ensure that the rent covered the cost. And I hope that's what you're asking, Cheryl.
Yes.
The goal was to ensure that I'm not having to pay any money. The goal is to have someone else setting you up for retirement, right? That's what having a home or multiple, whatever it is, any kind of real estate. The real goal, the real game is having someone else pay into your retirement. So having real estate and having tenants, they're basically just like you were paying, as a tenant, you're paying for someone else's retirement. Now you have someone paying for your retirement. So to answer your question, so initially the goal is to ensure that I price it so that the rent is paid for, any reoccurring costs, any kind of repairs that may come up, because they do come up. So you want to account for that. And then you want to account for a little bit of profit, not a lot, a little bit. Start small. If you make $100, then that's good. That's $100 you didn't have, because that's someone else is paying. That's
and a property you didn't have.
Yes, that's $1,200.
And appreciating assets.
Girl, say that again. Appreciating assets. So to answer your question, so my goal was, I was never the type of owner, and I'm still not the kind of owner. I would never buy a place, or I would never own a place if I'm not willing to live in it, or my family's not willing to. So I do, honest to God, I do put in the work. I'm not, even though I'm a distant owner, I have right now, currently, I have a management company. I've always have a management company to ensure that the person that's living in something that I own, it's home for them. It may be something that I own, but it's their home. And so I would always put in the work to ensure that real estate is profiting, because a tenant, they could try, and Nikki and Michelle could talk, they could trash you. So there goes your investment. So you do want to treat them. So going from that, moving into the next unit, again, it was about covering the cost and ensuring that I'm making just a little bit of profit. Not a lot, I was never greedy, but I do want to make a little bit of profit, because the goal was that little bit of money that I'm making, I'm just putting it right back into the unit, putting it right back into the property. I'm just turning that money over, because again, it's about longevity. It's not about making $100 a month and going out and buying a pair of shoes. No, because you don't know what the next month AC could go out. I remember one year I had to replace 2 ACs on 2 different units in the same year, in the same month. So things do happen. But once you get a tenant and they know that you care about your property, they're going to care about your property. If you're a distant homeowner and they see you once a year, or you're not send letters, I'd send greeting cards or something. Once they know and it's clear that you care about your property, they're going to care. The reason why people are slumlords is because they don't care. And if the owner doesn't care, the tenant's not going to care. So my goal was, Michelle, was to make just a little bit, because the real benefit is tax time. I'm telling you all, I was getting back, and because I had a good income, I was getting back every year. I was getting about $10,000 every year. I mean, I was getting change back every year. So I wasn't concerned about the month to month. I was concerned about that April 15th? Yeah, that was my goal.
Yes.
Yes.
And then also, like, again, every month that the mortgage is being paid, the property is being paid down. So your value in the asset is going up. So that's the long-term goal, is what I hear you saying.
In addition to that, I'm so glad you brought this up. I learned this thing about, Nikki, tell me what the legal term is, where you can take 1 month of your mortgage, right, divided by 12, and add that little bit of money every month to your mortgage. That cuts into your loan by 7 to 10 years. That cuts the life of your loan by 7 to 10. So when it's time to sell, you just have that much more money in your pocket, because you have sacrificed. Okay, let's say your mortgage every month is $1,000, right? So divided by 12 is less than $100. Let's say $90. So you take that $90, add it to your $1,000 mortgage, right? You have, by doing that every year, you cut down the life of the loan. You got a 30-year loan. I would recommend getting 15, but if you can't, 30-year loan, you're cutting down the life of that loan by 7 to 10 years. So when it's time to sell, that's that much more equity that you have in the unit. That's money in your pocket. Well, that's what they call leverage. You take that money and you prepare yourself for the next one. Anyway,
So Auntie, leverage. So do you, you know, the whole rich dad, poor dad thing where they talk
yes.
about, you know, basically being kind of, in my opinion, sometimes over leveraged, right? Do you believe in financing, having multiple properties financed, or is your objective, your strategy to kind of pay them down? Or is it a mix of the two?
You know, honestly, my strategy has always been, although I'm not averse to what the rich dad and poor dad, their principle is, but I'm not one for a lot of exposure, honestly. I just think having multiple units and having a lot of have a lot of lending, have a lot of mortgages out there, even though it's a mortgage and it's a 30-year mortgage, that's still money that you owe, and you don't, anything could happen. Someone could you could lose your job or something, and you're still responsible for that mortgage. I read an article earlier that broke my heart. But so I don't like a lot of exposure. So my goal is to pay down that loan as fast as I can, because that translates into money, you know, quicker. I just get to my mission much quicker. So I'm not one for a lot of exposure, but I understand.
Awesome.
I think in a commercial lending, it makes sense. I think in real estate lending on a small scale, because too much could happen. A tenant could walk away, you know, and if you don't have money in the bank, if you don't have that reserve, you're literally paying your rent, mortgage, and then you got to cover that mortgage too. And so, you know, anything can happen in a short period of time. So personally, I don't particularly care for a lot of exposure.
Awesome. We do have a couple of questions. I have another one. We spoke earlier, and you mentioned it here today, that flipping wasn't around when you first started.
Yes.
And then when we had a private conversation earlier, you mentioned that there's a difference in investing and flipping.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
And just understand that I'm an investor, but I think if I were younger, honestly, in this environment, because again, when I was, you know, I'm almost 60 years old. So 30 years ago, to Michelle's point, the term flipping, I'm sure people were doing it, but that term, it didn't become popular until the 90s, which added to that bubble that anyway. So flipping was not around when I got started. It was all about, you know, my mom and dad's generation, they were about buying a home and living in it for your family. So that was kind of the mindset that I took on. But if you're young, if you're just starting out, and flipping is a thing where you find a property and it needs some work and you have some disposable income. You know, some flippers will tell you, you know, get some lending, use other people's, you know, that song, use other people's money, owe it PM or something like that. And I guess there's some validity into that. The downside of that, I was going to say boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're not lending to us. Miss Nikki would tell you, they don't give us a creative lending. And so thinking that you're going to just walk in and have 3% to get a loan, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. You're going to need 20%. This is a traditional loan. And if it's a loan on a property that you're not going to live in, a residential piece of property that you're not going to live in, the rates are going to be higher. The requirements are going to be higher. But if you have that stash of money and you don't need to get any lending, then I would say go for it. Flipping simply is finding a piece of property that you have time and you have the expertise, you have the energy to go in, beautify it, turn it around, put it back on the market to sell, and then sell it at a higher rate because now the property it's been beautified. You know, you've gone in and put the nice hardwood floors and you've done, you know, all the really nice things based on the comps. Michelle will talk to you about that. Based on the comps, because you don't want to overprice yourself, based on the comps in the area, then you'll make that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And this is the other thing, y'all, let me tell you this, don't buy into you all, if you watch the HGTV, and if you all become fans of, what's that woman show in California, with the guy and his wife got into a fight, now they split up.
Flip or flop.
Yes. Listen, I watch it for entertainment, only because I've done it, but if you all are starting out, watch it for entertainment. Learn some things, start writing down the cost of things. Why start writing down the cost of replacing a floor, the cost of replacing AC, just so you can start getting educated on what things are going to cost. But don't remember, ladies and gentlemen, that's entertainment. That's not reality. Nikki will tell you that. That's what happened in the 90s. People were so far extended. They were getting loans that they could not afford. Why? Because they were basically being used. There were opportunists out there taking advantage of people like you and I who had maybe 1%, 2% down payment when you needed 20%. Well, they were giving us loans. And what happened 6 months, a year later? People couldn't afford it. So when they were just walking away. Anyway, don't buy into it. It's advertisement. It's entertainment. That's all it is. And accept it for that. I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
And you know, back then,
Nikki?
oh yeah, I was gonna say, and you know, back then it was all about predatory lending.
Yes.
So, you know, that you had no document loans and we didn't check your income, or, you know, it was putting you in a situation where they were basically setting you up for failure. And laws have been in place since then to ensure that now we can't do any of that. And you are fully protected from that. But it seems like it sucks because you can't just get the money how you used to, but it's for your protection now.
Absolutely.
And for the industry's protection, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone's across the board. Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense for a bank to get, you know, you may walk away and say, oh, I've got a loan on this 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, but you know you can't afford that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And so you're feeling pretty good. Okay, well, I got this loan, but I promise you, it will catch up with you. In 6 months, in a year, it's going to catch up with you. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to, because they'll walk you. I mean, they'll come and help you leave if you choose not to. No, they'll come and lock the door on you. They will. I promise you, I've seen it happen. They will sit your stuff on the sidewalk because, and this is the Christian in me, I believe it's all a part of the scheme to lead you to believe something that's not true. You know on paper, and I hope you're keeping a budget. I can't see it, the white to your eyes, but I hope you are keeping a budget, and it doesn't have to be sophisticated, but you can add 1 + 1. You can subtract 2 from 1. Oh, I'm sorry, 1 from 2. So put it on paper. If it don't make sense to you, come on. I don't care how creative they try to be. Don't fall for it because they're selling those loans. They're making a commission on those loans. Don't let them take advantage of you like that. If it's not making sense on paper, in the quiet of your room, under the lamp on your nightstand, if you're putting those numbers on paper and it's not making sense, it's not time yet. That's not to say you can't do it. It's just not time yet. It's just not time yet.
Stewardship.
Awesome.
Stewardship. Talk about that, Miss Nikki. Tell me about stewardship,
yes,
girl.
Well, I wanted to, I have a couple questions though first before we go into stewardship, Auntie.
Yeah.
Are you carrying all of those properties on your personal credit?
I am. Initially, yes, I was, because after the first one, remember, I was able to get it on the strength of not only was I able to get on the strength, I'm going to brag just a second. When I was about, I'm going to say 36, I had become obsessed with credit because when I learned the game, I became obsessed with it. And I wanted to tell everybody, oh my God, because it was one of those kind of things when you know you've been hoodwinked. It's like, I want to tell people about it. We are falling for this. They are rewriting the rules and the policies to keep us out, but there's a way around it. It's called deferred gratification. It's called biting that. How do you get the elephant out of the room? A little bite at a time. You just take a little piece at a time. Stick with it. So I learned about credit. There was one time where my credit had gotten up to 850, 855. And they said that's 1% of society was at 850. I was so proud of myself. And that's when I started realizing that the reason I was in it at that particular time was to be bragging. I felt pretty good about myself. And so pride took over. And so as things goes up, things come down. And I'm not going to be, I'm as transparent as I can be. You are going to, as an investor, because it's about a long time, you're going to have those ups and downs. But the good thing about investing and not flipping is that you're in it for a long term. It may not look good on paper, but 5 years from now, it's going to look better on paper. See, it only becomes a deficit is when you sell in the down market, then you lose. But if you hit a dip, if the market takes a dive, but if you're still in it, you haven't sold anything, it just looks bad on paper. It hasn't affected the bottom line because you're not trying to sell anything. So yeah, I was feeling pretty good about myself then, but thank God he matured me. But that predatory lending thing, it was the work of the enemy, the work of the devil. He had people believing all kinds of crazy stuff, and we fell for it.
Well, the reason why I asked, go ahead.
Nikki, I'm gonna get back to your question. I just want to say, so Sandy, who's in here with us, Sandra Hilsinger Pate. So two funny things. So one, she just left a comment for us on Facebook. She said, I got in the game 22 years ago, and the opportunities it has blessed me with is priceless. I love that you are on fire to share the desire with others. So the other funny thing about Sandy is she's in Chino Hills. She's in that market. Sandy, the first condo that Auntie's talking about was in Chino or Ontario.
Central Avenue. On Central Avenue. Yes.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Sandy, you're in Chino Hills?
Yes, I am.
Girl, my family lived in Chino Hills for, how long did mom and dad live? About 20 years?
Yeah.
Mom and dad lived, but yeah. So my first that 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit was off of Central Avenue. I'm trying to think of that cross. If you remember that cross street, girl, it was so close to the cows. You remember those cows in Chino?
The cows were
yes, it was like
the house 20 years ago.
Yes. Girl, we were so close to the cows, we could smell them. You know, you get up in the morning and you could
believe
smell
me,
them.
I know what you're talking about. So let me tell you, that little 2-bedroom, 1-bath in Chino now will be going for about $400, $450 to $500.
Say that again, Miss
It'd be
Sandy.
going
Say
for
that
about
again.
$400,000 to $500,000 now.
So you know how much I paid for that first 2-bedroom one? It was under 100. It was about 90. I'm going to say about $90,000.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I started years ago. I was a single mom, and every time they raised my rent, I was like, I can't do this. I'm a sitting duck for the rent increase. So I bought my first house 22 years ago. It's almost paid off, and it's number 1 of 11. So
shut up.
Oh yeah, and I teach. So I work. I'm a teacher. I do real estate part-time. So yeah, I believe in it. And you know what's really nice is when you can help others believe.
Yes.
It starts with belief. I think we've got that demon in our head that says, oh, I can't, my credit's not high. But if you can get them to believe it's possible, it happens. It all happens. You believe. Yep.
It is possible. I mean, look at me. It is possible. I may be older than some of you, but Miss Sandy's been doing it for 20 some years. I promise you, you start out smart. She's a teacher. We all know that teachers are notoriously, their salaries are not high notoriously, but she had made a commitment to herself and probably her family that this is what we're going to do. And it's going to take us a little while. 22 years later, look at her. 11, did you say 11?
11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I laugh because it didn't really start out as a thing. It just kind of happened. My first home was kind of to save myself. And then my second home was, I met my husband, we got married, we bought a home together. My third home was to help my dad when he needed to be hospiced. Yes. And every home has a story, but yes. When I look back, I think all the families we've been able to help and, you hand those keys to, and everybody's had a story that's kind of in our life. So it's been a blessing. Like, yes. Believe me, there's always that tenant that you're like, I can't wait till they decide to move. But for the most part, I've been blessed with so many nice people, and it's been great. I can't say I would do it any other way.
Right.
Thank you, Sandy.
Especially if you can help family. That really is. That eventually, Michelle, to kind of get wrapped back around your course, that became my why.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a position to help family. Yeah. That's what it's all for.
And I do believe when you're good to others, it comes back to you. Like I tell people, if there's too many roadblocks, it's not your path. I help a buyer right now. They've never owned, so they're almost 60. They're buying their first home. And I met them. They wanted to rent my place. And I said, well, why are you moving? Oh, our landlord, they're selling. We've lived there 12 years. And they were so angry about it. I said, well, then I can't rent you because I can't guarantee you I'll keep this for 12 more years. Okay. And I said, have you ever thought of buying? They said, oh, we can't buy. I said, no, talk to my lender. Anyways, they're buying. They're going to close escrow in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
I know. It's exciting.
And that's another thing you all to think about too. Rent to own. If you're in a position and you don't have a lot to kind of put aside, find something where rent to own.
Yeah.
That's a way to get started. The goal is to get in the game.
Yeah.
And if it means you've got to be a little creative in doing it, that's fine, because 5 years from now, it's not going to look the same. 10 years from now, it's not going to look the same. So if you can get into something with rent to own, then that's a way to get in the game. That's a way to get started.
Yeah. Someone said this to me and it clicked. You're already paying a mortgage, just not your own.
It ain't yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was like, wait, that's so true. So it helps them shift how they're thinking. If you're going to pay out here where we live, $2,500 is reasonable rent to $3,000. That's a mortgage payment.
It is.
So if you're going to pay that, invest it in yourself. But thank you for sharing. I'm super excited to hear the rest of your story. So I'll let you have it now. Go Tino.
Go Chino. Nikki, what were you saying? She's like, I forgot. We're talking about predatory lending. And I know, guys, to respect everyone's time, we're hitting that 8:00 mark. I think that, we've had a really successful event. We've had some great people on, and we talk about legacy, right? And I will just say here that between here and Facebook, we have a lot of our family on here too. So as you guys know, Vannessa's my aunt. Ed Heatley here, that's my uncle, that's her brother. Jaquise Heatley, that's my sister. My husband's on here, Dwight Morton. Dominic is in Facebook, Auntie Nessa. He says, hey family, he says great info. And this whole thing is about legacy, right? And so legacy starts, ends, and in between is all about family. So
hey Michelle, can we hear about, I think Nikki was talking about the credit.
Yes, let's talk about credit.
Yeah, what were you saying about the different credit?
The reason why, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, ma'am. You go ahead. You're the subject matter expert. Please go ahead.
Okay. The reason why I was asking if she was carrying all of the properties under her name is because I'm utterly amazed that her debt to income ratio was able to carry that. A lot of times people don't think about that. You have to carry low personal debt in order to be able to carry several properties, because after your first primary property, you're carrying investment properties. Right? We can't count it as a second home unless it's hundreds of miles away, and you're not going to be able to offset that mortgage with any type of rental payment. So investment properties are exactly what you would want, but you would have to be able to carry the DTI load. And what I mean by DTI is your debt to income ratio. Unless you're making a whole lot of money and you're able to carry all of that. But another way to do it that I've learned since I've started working on investing myself is that if you go through the process of building business credit under an LLC, you can carry those properties under your LLC and your personal credit will not be affected. But that's a process also, just like she was talking about. It really is a journey that you have to take, and it is a level of preparation and, like I said earlier, stewardship with your credit, with your debt, with your income, your budget, like she was talking about. All of that plays a part in being able to do that. If you're paying your mortgage on time and you want to take a home equity loan to help buy the next property, any types of line of credit, that sort of thing. So you are looking at, if you're trying to go long-term, the best route would probably be to not only work on your personal credit, but to also learn how to build business credit. If you know that you're going to do like Miss Vannessa and build several properties as your portfolio. I was reading this article not too long ago, and he was talking about how people think you get rich off of rental properties. He was saying if you scale a business with those properties, as opposed to just having a portfolio, a hobby or something like that, where you're just doing a property here and there, the people that are really millionaires off of it are the people that scale businesses through renting and owning properties. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, then like she said, know your why and think long-term and start to build that business credit as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, that's very helpful.
And it's, you can do it. If I hope you walk away with that, is that I'm amazed that so many people have taken this time on a Thursday evening to talk about something I'm absolutely passionate about. But it's doable. It's doable. But what you have to make a decision on doing is the work. First of all, you got to do the work. And the work starts with ensuring that you are living up to your obligations. That's what credit is all about.
Yeah.
The lender is not, if they cannot, they don't know you. You walk in, you certainly fill out all the forms. So you look, you look, I can't think of the word, but trustworthy, I guess is the best word. You look trustworthy. But when they put that stuff in that algorithm and it comes back, that information in the algorithm, and that number comes back and you're in the lower than 500s, come on, if anyone on this call is 30 and younger, if you've got a credit score below in the 500s, shame on you. You should not be in the 500s. You should not. You can't even come to the table. They're not going to speak to you. As a matter of fact, they're not even going to open the door for you. No. You get that credit score, 30%, and Ms. Nikki can talk to you about this. And I'm sorry, I'm very passionate, extremely, because this is how we get kicked out. We're talking about leveling the playing field. The reason why the playing field is not level now, it's not because of them. It's because of the games we play. It's the choices that we make.
Lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Yes, and fear.
So stop spending $8 on their little Starbucks. Stop going to every club. Stop buying every shoe. Stop buying every just stop. Just stop doing it. And I promise you, before you know it, that money that you have in the bank, that balance is going to start going up. It's going to start going up. And you're going to lose sight of why you even had 10 purses or why you were going out every single night of the week, because you're going to lose the appetite for that because your mission is clear. Stop playing. If you're in it, you're in it. If you're not, stop getting on the call. But if you're talking about owning real estate, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Just stop playing about it. You can do it.
Right. And I always say on all of our calls, knowledge is power. If you have no idea how to get that credit score up, ask for help. Michelle and I, we both do it. We are very committed. If you come to us with a 550, I'm going to teach you. We're going to teach you, or we're going to connect you with someone. If it's out of my hands, we're going to connect you with someone like Benita Grant to help you get that score where it needs to be and educate you. It really is about education and preparation. But again, it goes back to, why do you want to do it? So right now, if you're on this call and you want to buy a personal property, a primary property, or you already have a primary, or you want to shift right into investing, it's all the same thing. Knowledge is power. How do you get your score where it needs to be? How do you situate your debt to income ratio, and how to move forward? And there are so many ways now. Creative financing. There are other ways to invest in real estate without actually owning properties. There's so many ways. So it's just getting started.
Absolutely. So for the sake of everyone's time, we are going to let you go. I just want to wrap up and say, one, thank you so much, Auntie Nessa, for joining us today and sharing your story. Thank you to my co-host, Nikki. Thank you for all of you guys for joining us on this Thursday. The purpose of today in our Luxury and Legacy series is to bring to you the knowledge. Nikki just said education. And the primary reason we had Auntie Nessa on here today is because she's a real investor, right? She's not flip or flop. It's not the glorified version of what it looks like to be a real estate investor, right? There are many stories, there are many methods, there are many tactics, there are many theories, there are many books, but the real knowledge comes from talking to people who are actually in the game. So,
Michelle, again, if I can just add this one piece to kind of tie it all off to give you some real application. I'm retired after 32 years. I have my retirement coming in for those 32 years, and the properties that I own, they're paid off. So that's money that comes in every single month that I don't have to do anything for it. So if nothing else makes sense to you, get that. I have a retirement, it's a good retirement. After 32 years of service, I got a good retirement. But in addition to just a basic retirement, Social Security is going to kick in a couple of years. That's another source of income. But because the units that I have are paid off, that's what they call passive income. I'm not doing anything. I just collect a check every month. Miss Sandy can talk about that. So if nothing else makes sense to you, you need to start lining, what my dad would say, you got to start lining up your apples so that you can get in the game.
Get in the game. Get in the game. So everyone, the key is to get in the game, to just get started. Get your first property. If you're not a homeowner yet, we have a lot of people on here who can help you do that. First, start with Nikki, start with the lender. Let's talk about your money. We have Jabril on here, who's the new construction, new home guru. We have Dominique, who's a local realtor here in the DMV. Miss Sandy hopped off. She's in California. So if you need to buy your first property, talk to your lender, then talk to your realtor. If you're thinking about investing, talk to your lender and talk to your realtor. If you've already bought your first home, it's time to start thinking about getting in the game and building your legacy.
Yeah.
Cool? All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all very soon.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.